being part of this session and all of you who came for this panel discussion, which is going to deal with culture, different aspects of culture. But first, let me introduce our prestigious guests, speakers, panelists. On my left side is Risham Syed. Risham Syed is a visual artist and professor of fine arts, heading the Department of Fine Arts at the School of Visual Arts and Design, Deakin House National University, Lahore. Her multidisciplinary practice encompassing painting, textile, sound, and installation explores histories of colonialism, sociology, and politics with Lahore as a central reference point. Using fabric, embroidery, found objects, music, and painting. She weaves personal narratives with historical inquiry within broader global context. Risham has exhibited widely, including the Newark Museum of Art, a show which started in 2025 and is going to continue till 2027. Sharjah Biennale 2025, National Museum of Qatar, Manchester International Festival, Jameel Arts Center, and Asia Art Pacific Triennale. Her work is held in major collections. She has received the Abraj Capital Prize 2012 and the British Council Wow Award 2021 and holds degrees from NCA, Lahore and the Royal College of Art, London. Tabinda Chinoy is an acclaimed Pakistani artist known for her vibrant, semi-abstract paintings that capture the essence of women's fears, aspirations, and hopes. A fusion of Fauvistic and expressionistic styles breathes life into symbolic motifs like birds and fish, signifying hope and freedom. Her idyllic words, where buildings of diverse faiths harmonize, evoke a sense of unity and peace. A graduate of the Arts Council Karachi, Chinoy has also studied at the Slade School of Fine Art, London, where she honed her skills in sculpting. She has showcased her work in solo and group exhibition across the globe. Her artistic contributions are documented in a critically acclaimed book, Between Dreams and Reality by Marjorie Hussain, and published with foundation of the Museum of Modern Art in Karachi. The second book, dedicated to her art, The Dreamer Awakes, I suppose still coming. Tabinda, or is it already published? The second book is published. Amin Gulgee is a visual artist and independent curator. He received a BA in art history and economics from Yale University in 1987. He works primarily in sculpture, installation, and performance. His solo exhibitions are held at museums, art institutions, and galleries in the US, Italy, Malaysia, UAE, and Portugal. His international group shows include Interlaced at City International des Arts, Paris, Open 20, Venice. Rites of Passage, Princeton. Beyond Borders, National Gallery of Modern Art, Mumbai. Beijing Biennale 2003, and Pakistan, Another Vision, and Brunei Gallery, London. Gulgee has presented more than 35 performance works in Pakistan and abroad. He has also curated numerous group exhibitions at his non-profit gallery in Karachi and was chief curator of the inaugural Karachi Biennale 2017. Among Gulgee's many public works are steps in front of the Pakistan's Parliament building in Islamabad and researching for the skies at the United Nations headquarters in New York. His work is in the permanent collection of Jordan National Gallery of Fine Arts, Amman, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York, among other institutions. Saima Zaidi, a communication designer, is the founder, director of Numaish Karachi, an award-winning interdisciplinary collective which opens urban public spaces for cultural productions. The collective is currently engaged in a project, The Reading Room, revitalizing the Khalid Dina Hall and Library in Karachi. She edited and designed Mazar Bazaar, Design and Visual Culture in Pakistan, published by Oxford University Press, Pakistan, in collaboration with the Prince Claus Fund Library, Amsterdam, in 2010. She is editing a sister volume, Hazar Bazaar, forthcoming by Oxford University Press in 2026. Zaidi has been teaching design at several institutions, including the Department of Visual Studies at the University of Karachi. She received her undergraduate degree from the National College of Arts, Lahore, and her master's degree from the Pratt Institute, New York.
So it always feels like I'm coming home because of NCA, and I'm getting nowhere.
And thank you for being here with us. So primarily, discussion is going to be around how culture is faced, multiple influences, how it is shaped, how it is formed, who is defining it, how is it being defined. So we have, as you heard, artists from various backgrounds, and each contributed and have been contributed in the various areas of art and design and curatorial studies, as well as research, archiving, documenting. But when it comes to culture, we always have a very, I won't say vague, but a general idea of what culture is. It's often we assume what is culture, whether it is tradition, whether it is identity, whether it is heritage, or all of it, or maybe something else. So I think I also each day, not only for this session, but each day as in our practices, in our face these questions. So I found an interesting quote, I won't say a definition, but interesting quote by Kenyan author Gulgee Museum, and he said, culture is to a community what a flower is to a plant. Flower is very beautiful, very colorful, often very delicate. But it often readily defines the identity of the plant. Most important, the flower yields the seeds that make reproduction of the plant through its roots and trunks. Kill the tree trunk, even the roots, but retain the seeds, and the tree can reproduce itself. So I think for us, probably culture can be a way of retaining the essence of what we are. Yet, in your practices, I would like to ask this question to maybe let's start with Amin Gulgee, because his practice ranges from being a visual artist, a sculptor, performance artist, and he is also established Gulgee Museum after his father's name, and curated this seminal Biennale in the history of Pakistani art, Karachi Biennale 2017. So, how you see when we talk about Pakistani culture? What do you see? What is Pakistani culture?
That's an interesting question to do. When I don't really see Pakistani culture or global culture. I just see my culture. As an artist, that's what I'm trying to claim. I'm into my own mythologies, which are a mixture of stories from home, stories from abroad, stories from books I've read. It is all together in my sort of like Never Never Land. So when people talk about culture, it's not an absolute, it's like water. Culture flows everywhere, interconnects, interlocks. And I think maybe you tap into a human consciousness out there. Initially it was Pakistan at the Crossroads, this talk, and I'm like, what crossroads? I'm at a crossroads. I mean, especially last year, I set up my dad's museum, which I request all of you pretty LAHOREs to come and visit. And my monograph came out, a book on my work, and we did a book on the Gulgee Museum. Both books were edited by John McCary. And it's been an interesting year, so that's where I stand.
Thank you, Amin. You were talking about how culture is a fluidity.
Yes.
And you cannot really hold it in your hands.
Right.
You cannot really.
I mean, nationalists try to do this culture and that culture and Nazi culture and whatever. But culture is also, I mean, look at Islam. I mean, Byzantine, they took from Byzantine. Everything interlocks, interweaves together. Look at the Shalimar Gardens of yours, with Hindu artisana, with the symbol of the lotus, the seat of the gods, in a Muslim garden. Everything interlocks, everything interflows.
And also the fact that Pakistan is a new entity.
And old.
It's like kind of a
We're old and young. Which makes it sexy, which makes it hot, right?
Yeah.
Because we are always at a crossroads. I mean, Pakistan has never not been at a crossroads. And that's what I find so exciting about being here. It's this idea of one always questions. Because nothing is stable. We are not Switzerland. It's not chocolate and cows everywhere. Everything is changing. It's volatile. There are so many forces pulling this country left and right and center, and that makes it exciting. For me, it is.
Thank you, Amin. And Risham, because your practice is also in your art practice, recently we have been observing a shift because you were trained as a painter, and since you moved to Royal College of Art, and probably before that also, there was a shift of not only the inquiry of painting on a formal level, but through its historical, political context as well. And you've been searching, investigating, incorporating, and creating a world which is not devoid of political discourse, and how colonialism has tried to shape a community and mold a community, and through different kind of practice. As once I remember Risham told me that how in convent students were taught to do embroidery in a certain way, using a certain pattern, centered pattern, Victorian pattern or English pattern. So I think that sort of training, which led to a personal observation in your work, I think now it has kind of created to a great length by investigating how the colonial powers or the commerce routes are being infiltrating the production of knowledge, the production of thought, the production of culture. Would you like to kind of share about your research, and how your research become part of creative practice?
Thank you for this. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just taking down some. Like, it's interesting that you spoke about the flower and what it is to the plant, because culture comes from the word to cultivate, and the entire process of what the seed goes through is part of the cultivation. So whatever it absorbs, the environment that it gets, the air that it breathes, the water that's given to it, the sunlight, the quality of soil, all of that determines the growth of the plant. And so, so I guess culture is also like that. The things that we observe, the things that are given to us. And then, Amin spoke about mythology and the collective sort of memory. All of that becomes part of the culture and of our independent development and growth. So, yeah, the schooling that I got, for example, I went to a convent missionary school, and so those things have become, I've been critical of, and somehow they have, helped me engage with history and, larger politics. So from personal to kind of global or personal to the outside. Yeah, so culture then is whatever, we are, how one is nurtured and the influences one has. So some things one can step back and observe and talk about. Other things are part of one's being. And so as an artist, one can frame certain things, talk about certain things, and bring them into discussion and analyze them.
Thank you, Risham. But in your Apraj archives, you did extensive research about how the root of cotton from.
I proposed that I would, because the focus was on the Nasa region, which is Middle East, North Africa, South Asia, and of course that's on the trade route of East India Company. So I proposed that I would travel in the region and trace the trade route of East India Company, and in that process collect embroidery or handicraft from the region, and then make work. So I had a series of 7 quilts, and each quilt had, I used the things that I had collected on the way, and then there was a narrative embedded into each quilt that spoke about the rebellion against the British that took place wherever they went. So generally, like when we talk about the British rule, we think that they just came and took over, but there are stories of rebellion wherever they went. So I took those stories, and the series of quilts was about those rebellions.
And maybe in your new work also there is another series how the society or the community is being, I won't say invaded, but getting a different kind of cultural streaks, Chinese.
So I think, collectively there are things that you experience, but of course culture also gets divided through classes. And as we move up the classes, there's a desire to, for example, our dressing up as Mughal princesses or princes on our weddings is that kind of a desire to go higher up or to talk about history or to own history like that. So, the work I think that you're referring to is also about talking about power and where it lies, and how power also creates culture, and power also gives or imposes certain cultures or symbols of culture, like Amin was referring to how nationalism, for example, is created. So those quilts that you're referring to were talking about the global sort of trade and China, and because it was referring to the silk that I had inherited from my mother that she collected 30, 40 years ago. So through that silk, that material, I was talking about, secret and
Sorry, please.
So Risham very kindly has given me work for an upcoming show at the Gulgee Museum. It is for the launch of the Biennale. It's called Art of Kal, today, tomorrow, and yesterday. And Risham has given us a sound piece of her mother singing in hers, connecting time and tradition as we're speaking of culture. And that sound piece, my father had Strawberry painted it, and that sound piece will be there. So if you happen to be in Karachi on Friday the 13th at 6:30, please come over to the Gulgee Museum. There are about 70 artists from 18 countries, and I'm so grateful for your work, Risham.
Oh, and it's co-curated by Noor Ahmed,
who's the next curator of the Karachi Biennale, and Noor Ahmed is co-curating it with me. I'm not curating it myself, just for the record.
Thank you, Amin, and thank you, Risham. And we were talking about embroidery and how we studied, we were trained in convent missionary school, and how certain kind of skills were associated with certain genders. Like embroidery is always connected with women in households. And even when you, today, when you watch footage of industrial areas, or even like migrants in the UK, you see most women are working on factories and stitching and on stitching units. So that aspect of feminism or femininity we see in Tabinda Chinoy's paintings, where like you see how women are portrayed, and they are not portrayed through upfront or somehow I think they are portrayed in a poetic way, as you said, in a symbolic, in a metaphoric way. Yet, what lies in their heart is apparent on their faces, on their gestures, in their colors as well, which are all your colors, which are all your faces, which are all like, because it comes from your brush and on your canvas. So how this journey being trained as an artist as at Karachi School of Art, and then at the State School in London, how it kind of evolved into transforming your canvases into the portrait of women who can be from anywhere, as I mean previously said, the culture can be from, it is not static, so those women maybe not from Pakistan, they can be a general women as well. So how did that journey started and evolved?
Well, when I first started sketching and started painting, I was making paintings of reality, of what's happening in Pakistan, of what's happening in the world. And I found it very depressing because there's so much mayhem, there's so much killing, there's so much unhappiness in the world, especially in our part of the world. There's so many beggars, there's so many people in jails, and they're behind bars and very, very horrible conditions. So I made those paintings and stray dogs and street beggars and it was depressing me, and I said, why am I making reality? Why am I making something that is? Why can't I make something that can be? Why can't I dream? Why can't I produce work where there is hope? And that's what my paintings are now about. They're about hope. They're about your dream coming true. And because of that, I don't use morbid colors, I don't use grays, I use a bit of black, but that adds to the color of the paints. And so I started making colorful paintings. So I'm known for my color in my paintings. And I make women, or men, especially women, and they may be sad, but their lips are very determined. I always use red lipstick, and I'm using it on myself as well. And that is, again, a symbol of hope for me. My women are women who who are always very determined. No matter what happens in life, they want to achieve something, they want to do something. So that is what I do with the women that I make. And I use symbols, very simple symbols, like a bird, for example. And a bird is free. The bird can fly high, go down, do anything they want. Fish is another symbol which I use in my paintings. And again, it's the same story, the same reason. And why can't we, especially women in Pakistan, especially women in the rural areas, they sort of get down that even if they have a honor, even if they have some talent, many of them are not allowed to show their talent. But they can show talent even sitting at home. They don't have to be out somewhere working. They can work from home, they can do things with their life. And so therefore, that's one aspect of my paintings. And another aspect of my paintings is that I make buildings, and they're semi-abstract, but they are, I don't make them all straight and very realistic. They can be crooked, they can be anything, but they show unity and hope, and what they're all about is, in one canvas. If you look out the window, you will never see a church, a mandir, a mosque, a Hindu temple, mud huts representing the poor, high-rise buildings, all these different buildings actually representing people, representing religions, representing togetherness. They're all in one canvas, in one window. You look out the window and you can never see anything like that. They're representing humanity, they're representing people and their oneness, which to me is a dream. It hasn't come true, but one can always keep hoping that it will come true one day. So that's what my buildings are all about, And I've had a few exhibitions in other countries as well, and people have appreciated the thought behind it. And of course now it's like living in peace and harmony. It's like live and let live. And live and let live, not just as a human being, but as different people from different parts of the world with their own religions, with their poverty or with their richness or with their wealth, or ordinary people in different fields of life, of work, are there together. They are one. And that is what my paintings are about.
Thank you. And it's very interesting you mentioned the symbol of fish and bird in your painting, because both fish and bird do not need any passport or barriers to cross borders. And I think they have their own lives and their own territories, republics, if I may say that. And I think the boats also travel in the imagination of a community, which is in our part of the world, which appears in the manifestation of those popular culture through rickshaw paintings, through hoardings, and through transport art, through various areas, posters. And Saima Zaidi, being a design practitioner and a tutor, and also running an independent research project which I think she's going to talk in a minute, has done this seminal book, Mazar, edited by her, in which I think probably till this day there is no other book which has that kind of a wide range. If you want to know anything about Pakistani popular art and design, that's the book. So I think that was a huge task, from currency note to mazars, and from film posters to talcum powder. And would you please talk about, because I think I'm very, especially me, very curious how this idea came and how you managed that uphill task in doing it.
Thank you, Quddus. It's been a while. So that was back in 2010, and I was when I started.
Books never die.
That is true. But I think there's been a lot of trajectory in between. I can respond to that point in my life when I was 28, and I decided to do this book, which just kept unraveling. But it was a really interesting point in my life, and I think what actually ended up happening for creators is, I think, and especially at this stage in my life, why is it that we do what we do, right? Why this? Why women? Why are you embroidering? Or, you're doing your Gulgee Museum as well as, of course.
God knows.
But yeah, there's a sort of, there's a certain point in your life where you start really actually, there's a self-introspection. It's not just about, I want to do it, and I will do it, and no matter what, right? So I think at that point in time, I can see that it was really, much like everybody else, a creative curiosity, and as well which became into a compulsion, right? Which is how most creators work. I, of course, had returned from New York at the time, and I was teaching at the Valley as well as the University of Karachi Department of Visual Studies. And what ended up happening at that point in time, centuries ago, was that I was teaching history of design. And much like a 24, 40, I was 25 at the time, let me not make myself younger. At that point in time, when I was teaching my students, I recognized that I was teaching like my professors, like whatever happens, you went to New York, you study from, a brilliant writer and historian, and then you come back and you start teaching the students pretty much exactly the way, because you haven't really developed your own sort of style yet, right? Because you're super young. And I do recall that what ended up happening was that at one point I realized that there was a real disconnect between what I was teaching my students, like psychedelic movement in the 70s in California, Berkeley, or for that matter, Art Nouveau happening across Europe. Of course, it has its influences here as well, or for that matter, Art Deco, which happened in, say, again, the West. And that's when I realized that, wait a second, this does not make sense to my, it has to be, we need to know this. I'm not saying that we do not need to know that kind of history or those kind of influences, specifically in the 20th century, but at that point I realized that we need to look at our environment and our own things and what we wear and what we do and what we eat and how do we, navigate the global, the cultural, it's like you said about it being a flower. I think it's an onion, right? So culture is like an onion. So there's a core, which is the family, the unit, and then it's the friends. Then you go further, it's the village, the city. Then you've got the province, the state, and then of course you go further away to the country, and then the region, the continent, and finally the globe, and all, as you said earlier, is impermeable. It's not impermeable, it's all osmosis. It's constant cross-pollination that's happening. So I think I responded to you. And you were also in the book, by the way. And you did a fantastic essay on currency notes.
Thank you. And, it was also in my childhood. And I think, I know Saima mentioned her current projects as well. Unfortunately, we don't have much time, I've been informed. But there is one question I want to put to all of our panelists. Strangely, we have we are having this discussion on a day in which Basant has started in Lahore. And I was watching TV in the morning and I realized it's after 25 years, the Basant has been revived. And we talk about Basant as a cultural manifestation of our life of Punjab, and a tehwar which is associated, a festival which is associated with season, with crop, the change of weather, and how it was stopped and how it was allowed. So how state or how power participates in formulating, modifying, transforming, or suppressing culture? Anyone can.
No, actually, I think it was stopped, the Basant festival, because people were using the wrong type of strings, and because of that, there were deaths. It was a very horrible at that point. It sounded lovely, it seemed beautiful, but there were so many deaths. So now what this government has done is to be very strict about the type of string that you use. And hopefully it will be much safer. That's one thing. Another thing is that Basant, actually they say, is more a Hindu thing, but I don't think that matters. I don't agree with that, because it is actually the bringing up, the start of spring, the start of flowers, the start of a very pleasant time. So that's what Basant is.
But Basant was just an example.
Right.
The question was.
I know.
Yes.
Because power and culture have been always intrinsically linked, right? And when the right kind of power, with a vision comes, then you have the Renaissance. You have the Pope saying, hey, Michelangelo, here's some nice ceilings, go for it. They've always been profoundly linked. Art has always been elitist. Even now, and even more so with contemporary art. Because at least back then, you had mosques and churches where the common person could see a Madonna and child and relate to it in some form or fashion. And now it's become so rarefied and so esoteric that even intellectuals, PhDs in sciences, say, I don't understand contemporary, because it's so self-referential.
Oils.
So I'm just thinking of the experience of Basant from my childhood and then from my youth. As a child, I remember, participating in it and looking at my elders, my older cousins, my dad, all, into Basant. And then when I was in college, it was the party season, every Basant, it was like Denki Basant, like Chaton pe, Androon share, whatever. And then multinationals took over. And with that, of course, came in more money. There came in, this idea of using chemicals or whatever, something that it made it really ugly. Basant or any festivity, whenever it's taken over by institutions that are associated with power, of course you will lose the essence or beauty of the festivity itself.
And the power of market forces also.
Capitalism.
One other thing I just want to say is that three of us are from Karachi.
Capitalism.
I thought all of
And
us are
I do hope that there won't be even a casualty or anybody hurting themselves. They will forget about dying, but this time during the sun, I hope it goes off very well with all the precautions that the people are taking. So I hope it comes to Karachi and goes to the rest of the
And with Karachi, we die all the time anyway. It's not an
Yes.
So that's my wish. You agree?
Saima, would you like to add into how market forces or politics or state operates in the realm of culture?
I think it has already been said. I feel that
Because you're working with
I
people.
worked with the World City Lahore Authority and right now working with the Karachi Metropolitan Corporation. I'm not talking about, I'm not working with the Prime Minister. I mean, at the end of the day, I do believe that we will have to keep working with the government. It might not be easy, it might not be pretty, but I think for us to just say that, मैदान खाली है, मुझे छोड़ के चले गए. So I think that that's not the answer. It's not easy for us, like this reading, just to wrap up, we are working in a really beautiful Greek temple. Like it was, and again, coming back, it was, it's called the Khalik Dina Hall and Library. It's on Main Image in our road. And it's the most beautiful, like all the buildings there are so stunning. And they are not, unfortunately, like the War City Lahore, or even the Mall Road, or, the work has not been preserved. They're all crumbling upon themselves. That said, I think there are these beautiful buildings that are being renovated and restored, and we have been very lucky to do that. And I just want to put this out there, that this is a 1906 building, right? It was given by a Khoja merchant, right, as a gift to the city, right? And the architect was a Lahore Jewish, yeah. And then who was it for? For the locals. It wasn't like Fair Hall, which was by the British for the British. This was specifically a library for recreation as well as literary pursuits. So I think there was vision, and this was again just philanthropist. So I don't think, and now it is also we are custodians of the building with KMC, and I'm not going to say it's an easy task. Right? We can easily kind of, sometimes I wonder why are we doing this to ourselves? Like what happened? Why? Like, but then, and in fact, sometimes we find very educated, very thoughtful, very culture sensitive people in government institutions. But we have to engage with them, is all I would say at this point. Without engagement, we have lost completely.
And now we have 10-minute slot for Q&A session, but please refrain from making any statements because though those statements are great, but they will take long. Please.
Maybe you can ask the question and we can hear.
Maybe I think the most relevant thing today, since you mentioned it's the sun's first day and festival, and how politics and powers shape culture. So, and you just asked us not to pass this statement, but since morning I was studying relations from abroad, that I am feeling like and not feeling any freedom, even if it's the sun, because I cannot play my favorite song because government has banned it. I don't play it. So what, even if it's a festival or whatever, the power is still shaping the culture the way they want it their way. Not the way
not from Coca.
Can I ask a question? This is Farah Khan. So you were
And
referring.
please, also,
Please also mention who you want to ask.
I would like to have answer from anyone who can give me another aspect of looking at the question I'm going to ask. You were referring to cultural divide, and Amin mentioned that. So how do you see gender divide in Pakistani art and culture?
Gender divide.
Gender divide. Is there
It's interesting, because you have the Western idea of gender, but then you have the South Asian idea of gender. And a lot of issues that we have been imposed upon us. We are speaking in English because of the British, because of the English. We are communicating right now with each other in English. And there's a very different perspective towards sexuality, which I do not want to get into right now, that has always existed in South Asia. And yes, that's where I'm going to leave it. And that's very fluid. That's like water.
And diverse. Any other question, please?
Yeah. My question is primarily directed towards you, Said.
Oh,
But
please.
yeah, any of you would want to give in some answers, that is also appreciated. My question is that in Pakistan we see that art is more so associated with femininity. And for the boys who want to pursue arts, is there any sort of advice that you would like to tell them?
Like to any artist, right? Johnny, and you're young, right? You're 20-something, right? Or even younger. Oh God, I hate you. You should die. If you want to, it's really like I didn't want to be an artist, my parents didn't want to be an artist. It's a tough life, right? This is not an easy way to make money. It's much better to go towards capitalism. And even art, you have to flirt with capitalism. But just stay true to yourself. See, it's not about being a man or a woman, it's about being an artist. Then you're like water again. Just be fluid, be honest, be true, and prepare for a fight.
And I can add into this that we just don't have any gender identity. We have multiple identities at the same time. Color, gender, language, region, and multiple. And I think we share multiple communities with that. So once you have a certain specific frame set, it means like there's outside pressure which forces you to just keep inwardly.
Right.
Why not a black writer write a black female writer write a novel about a white male person living in the US or living in Australia? So I think we have as creative practitioners, artists or writer or anyone, we have the freedom to assume different personas. Whatever we have, that's by fate. But what our minds can imagine, that's unlimited freedom we can access.
Mustaghis.
Mustaghis, I see like 4 or 5 world-renowned artists, male world-renowned artists sitting in this hall right now. So you can interview them also. They're 2 sitting here.
Yes. Beach
So बहुत सारे हैं सर hall में, you can talk to them.
Like James Baldwin, right? He was an African-American writer, and one of his early books is Giovanni's book. He wrote about white people.
And I think Risham, lately, in the last set, male artist, but I don't call myself male artist, I'm just artist. Any other question?
I have a question.
जी
हम में से यहाँ कुछ ऐसे हैं जिन्होंने formally नहीं पढ़ा क्योंकि we wanted to study subjects like dance तो क्या पाकिस्तान में कभी BA डांस में आएगा?
Oh, yeah, good question. Risham.
I don't know, लेकिन music में तो you can get a
वो
degree.
तो फर्क ही फर्क है. It's a different art.
Yes.
But I don't know, Karachi में with the...
We have Napa,
Yeah,
but
Napa.
still, it's not a bachelor's program. It's not a Pakka program, and I don't know whether they do have a, I'm not really that familiar with Napa, but it dance, yeah. Yeah, you're right, yeah, inshallah.
I have a question. It's very easy to say that, stay true to yourself. But in your experiences and generally your advice to all of us, how do you stay true to yourself? Right? And then another question I have for Madam is that you wrote your book when you were 28 years old.
No. I was older. I started
You started
She was
at
16.
this language
All right.
when I was 28.
All right. So over time, when you're compiling a book, your narrative and your perspectives also evolve. From then to now, how do you see that change and your perspective upon culture, especially in Pakistani art? And personally, since it's also Basant, have any of you actually depicted Basant in your artwork?
Okay, so just a second. Firstly, the difference between then and now. So I've almost completed the second edited volume, which is just a volume of Bazaar. It's called Hazar Bazaar. And of course, there's going to be no Hazar Bazaar, by the way. It's been almost 5 years, and it's almost at the brink of being printed. Your question was regarding whether I've seen a change, or is that what you asked me?
Yeah, like how has your perspective evolved?
My own
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
I don't think I even had a perspective when I started the research, I'll be very honest. Research has the ability to come up with lots and lots of surprises. And you also kind of throw it out in that language, in the movie language, you throw it out in the universe and see what happens. At that time, what I can say to you is that there was no Instagram, or there was no algorithms working in my favor, right? So it's not as if you have to go to a library, you have to do the research, you have to go do primary research, you have to speak to people. And I think that was a very enriching experience for us, right? And it's an edited volume, mind you, so I'm not a writer. I edited this book with multiple, approximately 40, 50 authors and these were like things like Pakola or, I don't know, I can't remember, Tibet Snow or all these like very, very regular, like Burra, So what my perspective has changed, I don't think the perspective has changed. I just feel that we have evolved and now we are interested in other things which are also very much embedded in the now, right? So earlier, I would say my work was more looking at more history, right? Like, okay, why is something so precious to us, regardless of Lenguvza, which has been there forever, like 19 or something, early 19 or something. At that point, I was more interested in what makes things popular to us and why do they capture our hearts and minds and why do they make us belong. At this point, I'm more interested in how are we navigating a cultural flux. Culture is always in flux, but I'm talking about technological advances, etc. And I'm more interested in the bazaar itself, right? Like where actually culture is super alive and the lived heritage that you talked about.
Thank you, Saima. Thank you, Saima, and thank you all of you. Sorry, we are running out of the time because they've been getting messages that for the next section. So we are here, and all these panelists are here, so you can ask questions individually to them.